Hello, my name is Rose Riley, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Washtenaw County. Welcome to our online candidate forum for the August 6th primary election. The League is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that promotes voter education and participation. And we host candidate forums to help voters make informed choices. Now, let's hear from the candidates.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Madden, and I will moderate the forum tonight. It's my honor to introduce the two candidates running in the Democratic primary for Pittsfield Township Supervisor, Christina Larones and Trish Riley. Thank you, candidates, for participating in this forum. So now we're ready for opening statements, and we're ready for Ms. Larones. Please, your opening statements, 90 seconds.
Thank you. And thank you to the League and to Ms. Riley for attending this forum, for holding the forum and attending it. I'm Christina Larones. I'm Democratic candidate for Pittsfield Township Supervisor. I was previously Pittsfield Township Clerk and then Pittsfield Township Treasurer from 2000 until 2008. 2000 2004, I was Clerk. Until 2008, I was Treasurer. Those are both full-time elected positions. I was also chair of the Planning Commission from 2000 until 2008. And during our time in office, we were able to save hundreds of acres of parkland. We were lacking in parks at the time. We were also able to save our drinking water system, which had boil water notices, and we were having some terrible problems with that. So we built a 5 million gallon tank and a redundant water main. And I look forward to continuing to protect and preserve our parkland, take care of all of the people in Pittsfield Township, provide more opportunity for affordable housing, and just make it a good, safe place to live and for it to continue to be a diverse and welcoming community for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Riley, now we can have your opening statement.
Hi. Thank you for having me. My name is Trish Riley, and I attended Eastern Michigan University and worked in the private sector for like 15 years. When my family was born, when I moved here to Pittsfield, I had a really strong desire to work in the community where I was raising my family. Went back to MSU, I got my master's degree, and I started to advocate for local businesses as executive vice president of the A2Y Chamber. Still wanted to do more, so I went back to school to University of Michigan and got my MPA, and I became deputy supervisor under the current administration. From there, I was called up to the county to work on election integrity. And so I'm now chief deputy clerk there. I've been there for, going on 9 years now, and working with League of Women Voters to support local clerks. But I never wanted to leave the community that I love so much, Pittsfield. So I've been a park commissioner, which is also an elected position. I've been doing that for about 7 years now. I'm currently chair of the park commission, and I'm the representative of the township on Watts and the Karen River Watershed Council, where I can watch for infrastructure and our natural resources at the same time. So with 20 plus years experience in the public sector, when Supervisor Graywall said she was going to step down, I was asked to step up, and I'm happy to do so. I've raised my kids here from Carpenter to Scarlett to Huron. I've been a PTO mom, a soccer mom, and I'm excited to give back to the community that's been my family and me so much. So thank you again for having me, and thank you, Christina, as well, for showing up.
Thank you both. Okay, we'll begin with the questions, and we'll start with Ms. Riley. So you have mentioned some of the roles of the supervisor, but I'd like you to elaborate a little bit on what are the primary roles and responsibilities of the supervisor position, and which do you consider to be the highest priority?
Okay, so the supervisor, there's very little statutorily that has to happen. You don't even have to have a deputy, whereas a clerk or a treasurer you do. You're looking over the budget, you're setting the agenda, you're doing that. But to me, it's more of it's sort of like in a city, you're a mayor and you're also an administrator. So you're both of those things at the same time. And to me, the most important thing is you're advocating for your residents. You're listening to your residents. You're bringing back the things that need to be brought to the board, to a diverse board. You're not just listening. You're not just interested in one area or not just one thing that your hot button is. You are a public servant. You are someone who is there to steer the ship. You're there to listen. You're making sure that when residents bring you things that they're heard, not necessarily that everything's going to happen because you have to follow the law, and you may not have funding. You have to make sure that you're also watching for the funding and watching for grants and making sure that everything is fiscally responsible. But you're making sure that it's heard. And once you're taking a direction, you're working with your partners to make sure that even though someone wants something, it has to be good for the township in general. You have to look for the future, the sustainability of that. Like Christina said, there's a lot of building going on right now. There's a lot of, and great. I mean, why wouldn't you want to live in Pittsfield Township? We're centrally located, we're diverse, we're affordable. But with that comes challenges. We have to make sure that we keep the open spaces, we keep our community feel, we keep our schools going well. So it's about bringing everyone together and steering the ship and setting a tone for the township. And that is both responsibility of making things happen, but doing it in a financially stable way. So I hope that kind of gives a big overview.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Laronis. Yeah.
Thank you. That was an excellent overview, Trish. I appreciate that. As Trish pointed out, the supervisor's role, while it is essentially the CEO of the township, and you're responsible for overseeing the budget, and you're the person who's going to be signing off on the audit and all of the different documents that are coming before the township. It's oddly enough the least described in state statute, and it was initially entitled supervisor/assessor. So it was the supervisor assessor, and the supervisor was the assessor of the township. But in most modern townships, the supervisor is not the assessor. And in Pittsfield, we have, I believe, a level 4 assessor. There's a statutory requirement depending on your taxable value, your tax base, what level of assessor you need. So that's a professional position. In our township, then what the supervisor ends up doing is overseeing a multitude of departments. And underneath the supervisor's control is the public safety department, the planning department, and then all of the assessing department, and then all of the areas that the supervisor has just taken on as her roles over time. When I was first in office, the supervisor that I worked with was Supervisor James Walter, and he was my mentor, and I was a part of the full-time management team of the township. And in his wisdom, we were able to conserve hundreds and hundreds of acres of parkland in Pittsfield Township. We were suffering from stormwater flooding, the infrastructure failures that I described earlier, and we were able to save the Pittsfield Preserve, which is hundreds of acres, Hickory Woods Park, Wall Park, and a number of other smaller areas as well. So it's a broad position. You select the members of the Planning Commission. It's extremely important, but yet, oddly enough, not terribly well defined. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Okay, question number 2, we'll start with Ms. Laronis. It's on fiscal expertise. The township has a multi-million-dollar annual budget. What experience or education prepares you to oversee township finances of this magnitude?
I'm unmuted, correct? The last position I had at the township was a township treasurer. And so I was managing the investment and safeguarding the funds of the township. I would handle the statements that were prepared in order to increase our bond ratings. And so the official statements are an in-depth review of all of the sources of funding, the township's largest employers, all of the different ways that the township gets money. We were able to increase our bond rating. And in addition, of course, I was overseeing the budget of the treasurer's office. While I was in office, we very much operated collegially. So we were a full-time management team. I was, as the clerk and as the treasurer, I worked full-time all day with the Pittsfield Township Supervisor. We also were very, very fortunate to have a Director of Finance, Tracy Watkins, who will be leaving this year. So there will be some succession planning that we need to do. She's retiring, but she was a professional who helped us delegate the funds to the various budgets and, just make sure that we had everything funded that we needed to have funded. We were able to lower the tax rate twice while still turning in balanced budgets every year. And we were able to stockpile ample reserves, enough so that we were actually able to purchase some of our parks with cash money and still have millions of dollars left over. I also worked as a federal revenue officer at the Internal Revenue Service, so I'm well acquainted with all accounting practices and tax requirements of every kind. Thank you.
Ms. Riley, same question?
Sure. Yeah. So, obviously I have 2 master's degrees and I have a half a MBA as well from University of Michigan. So that was basically what you learned how to do, and is making sure you made a balanced spreadsheet. My first job out of college was actually at Bank One. So I was the marketing analyst and a financial analyst there. So that's kind of, I do enjoy numbers, which gets to be a little crazy. When I was deputy supervisor, when we did grants and again, we can't say enough good things about Tracy Watkins, who is the financial person at the township, working with her and going through the numbers and making sure they all crunch. And when you're working with matching funds and you're working with other groups, go through SEMCOG or Watts, and trying to make sure that the sharing all matches, you have to have that financial expertise. I'm also very fortunate that I am now chief deputy clerk at Washtenaw County. And so when I'm not only overseeing, the elections area and the administration, but I'm also deeds and the vital records area. And so the entire budget of hiring people and, unfortunately laying people off if need be, but not yet. And then just making sure that all of the equipment that we need and making sure that we're balancing the budget not only in our area, but in the area for the entire county. And a big thing is just to make sure that when you do have the shortfalls, either you have to cut back on the spending to carry that, but I don't like to do that necessarily. I like to make sure that we keep the services that we have. So it's making sure that when you're doing your procurement, you're getting the best rates, and when you have a good rating, you can do that. Just like in life, when you have good credit score, you get better options. So we want to make sure that we're looking out for that and capitalizing on opportunities like grants and working with state representatives to get your appropriations. So budget's very important to me, and in my personal life and in my business life. So thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, the next question will go to you first, Ms. Riley, on inequities. Do you see injustices or inequities in the township? And if so, how would you address them?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that Pittsfield Township is diverse, and Christina and I have talked about this before. It's part of the beauty. One of the best things about Pittsfield is its diversity. But there's always room for improvement. There's always underlying things where you can never stop looking at that. Diversity, equity, inclusion. Our slate, Pittsfield Partnership, has a very diverse group of people. 6 of them are already elected, and 6 of them will be new energy. And they are from all walks of life. They are for all parts of Pittsfield. And that's the thing we want to make sure we do, is that when we're sitting at the table and we're deciding on something, we're not just looking at it in a tunnel. We're looking at it from every part of Pittsfield, from every walk of life, and looking at all the different areas. And when an issue is brought to us, and I work in elections right now, and there have been many inequalities, and luckily the law has changed to help combat those. And I think being aware of it and making sure that you don't get too complacent in the fact, public safety. I know that we have a great public safety, we really do, but there is room for more transparency, looking at the numbers, making sure there is no profiling going on. There's been some incidents, and our public safety department has been very responsive, making sure they've been training. They've sent their top leadership to training. So in my estimation, we are a diverse and good community, but we have to constantly be looking at that. The world around us is throwing us a lot of different things, and where the election goes in November will be challenging, and we'll need to make sure that we're ready to combat that regardless of what happens. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Laronis, the same question.
There are certainly areas of inequality in Pittsfield Township, as there are in any community. And our public safety department was called out at one time, particularly in In 2000, I ran with a gentleman named Greg Connor, who was our first Black trustee ever elected in Pittsfield Township. And the impetus for him to run was the fact that he had been racially profiled and pulled over on his way to his home in Stonebridge, which is one of the more upscale portions of the community. The police officer, the Pittsfield officer, followed him to his home, demanded to know where he was going and why he was going there. And it was where he lived. So that brought to light in a very important way a problem that we had in Pittsfield Township. Since then, we've worked on that quite a bit. After we were elected and when I was in office, Trustee Connor would meet with Public Safety Director, and we worked on diversity and hiring, which has fallen back to some degree. We do not, at this point in time, have the diverse police force that I would like to see. So I would like to work on that, certainly. We're going to be hiring a new Public Safety Director because Public Safety Director Harshberger will be retiring, as far as I can tell. I know his contract was extended, but I believe he will be leaving the township. So there'll be a tremendous opportunity for us to really research the candidates who would be the best for best representing everyone in Pittsfield Township with our police department. And not to say that there aren't other areas where we need to improve. Certainly the 23 divide is very true in Pittsfield Township. There's a side of the township on the west that's more upscale, the side on the township on the across 23 with the Ypsilanti addresses. We need to add more pathways, more improvements. We need to do a lot more to reach out to the residents there. We need to build more affordable housing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. The next question will go to Ms. Laronis first on the environment. What specific policies should the township implement to balance climate change and environmental issues with the desire for economic development?
Well, certainly I would open up the master plan. Our master plan needs work. It's typically done through a community-based survey and panels and bringing information in, and then the Planning Commission melds it together. But in the township for the past few years, the supervisor has written the master plan. And so we're not getting the diverse opinions, and we're not getting the wisdom, the collective wisdom of our community, which has a lot of very bright people who know a lot about climate change and ways that we can improve it. So I would certainly open up the master plan. I would make sure that we're conserving the green space that we need to. I would make sure we're extending the sewer and water service district to areas that could have clustered development and higher density development in order that we can preserve more open space. When I took office in 2000, we were able to stop a very dense development right in the center of the township, which would have created terrible stormwater problems for one thing. And then it was the lowest and wettest part of the township, and serving it with utilities would have been very difficult. So we were able to save that and withdraw it and created the magnificent Pittsfield Preserve. And that has been just a gem for the township. We also added several other parks, including Hickory Woods, which is quite large, and just Wall Park, which is also quite large. So adding your parks and your green space, keeping an eye to your green infrastructure, I think is most important. I would reestablish the Natural Resources Commission, which was abolished by the current administration. I would reestablish the Housing Commission as well, which can have a lot to do with developing in a way that's both affordable and takes care of the climate. And I would also, just as a small thing, reduce the inspection fees on solar panels, because quite a few people have commented to me when they put up their solar panels, they got hit with a pretty large inspection fee from the township. So anything that we can do to adjust our fees and ordinances in order to incentivize green building, we should do. Thank you.
Ms. Riley?
Yeah, absolutely agree with the incentivizing of solar and moving in that direction. I know the township currently has a plan where you can pay a little bit more into your utilities, and that money that you're spending is going into using green energy, encouraging that sort of thing. The 820 over in Ann Arbor City, I was part of that, the beginning process of that, and making sure we have a seat at the table when they're doing things. We have these great partners in the area. We want to make sure that we're partnering with them and using that for leverage. We are the second largest township in Washtenaw County. We have some pull. We should be at the table. They're looking at their own power in Ann Arbor City. And I'm not saying that's what I want to do, but we can go to DTE with that and basically say, hey, listen, there are other options that are going out here. We want more infrastructure. I lost power twice in the last 2 weeks. There has to be something more sustainable. We need backup plans. There's that I don't know if I'm giving my age away here, but we used to go up north. You'd stop at rest areas and they would have manual pumps for water. We have the capability of doing that. We could set it up in the corners of Pittsfield to make sure that we always have fresh water, regardless of what happens with structure. We're working with the Huron River Watershed Council. We have a creek that is at Montebello Park that is all but almost dried up at this point. It's when we were Mallet Creek when, back in 1824 when we first settled, because we had a creek and we had, the people gathered around water. That made sense. So we're working to make sure, there's grants and there's funding to happen to restore those creeks, to bring that natural beauty back, and to make sure that we're not doing anything to harm it as we're doing things and we're moving our township forward. But I agree with Christina, definitely, in the sense that we should be looking at our open spaces, and we definitely should be working on making sure that our infrastructure and our solar growth is there. Thank you.
Okay, the next question will be the last question, and we'll start with Ms. Riley. This is on mental health and public safety millage. You have mentioned public safety before. This is about the millage and mental health. Part of the county-wide mental health public safety millage is used by Washtenaw County to reduce the fee it charges to local governments, including Pittsfield Township, for policing services. Do you support a renewal of the millage? And should the use of these millage funds be changed?
Yeah, and this is going to be something Christina is definitely the expert on that. She's actually on the board of the Disability Network. But I do. I was there at the meetings for the county when they were back and forth, talking about this and been part of the process. I do understand the need for more of the mental health towards that. I feel as though one of the things I would like to do is make our public safety a public health and safety. Really using that to our resources to work on that the same way, having our department work at that at the same time. I think it's 24%, and Christina can attest to that, of the money that would come to us, since we're not part of the sheriff's department. And I feel like I do support the mental health public safety millage. I trust in our county commissioners. I think they're all very good people who have given this great thought. They had many public engagements and forums, and they have ordinances that they worked back and forth on, and bylaws within it. So I do support it, and I think it's very important. It's very important to what we do. If we do not get that, that will affect our public safety as well. But I feel as though public safety and mental health can be kind of merged a little more together, because it is such an issue. My son is going to University of Michigan for mental health and for social work, and working on Meals on Wheels. And he comes home with stories. It's the generation, the next generation is dealing with it so much more. And there's so much more that we need to get ahead of, so it doesn't get worse. The coming back to after the pandemic is quite it's quite challenging. And our homeless problem in the area surrounding Pittsfield has a lot to do that. So I do support it.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Laronis?
I would say my position on it is rather more nuanced than Ms. Riley's. I was working with a group that was very much working to change the language of the millage. We're not satisfied with the ballot language as it was placed on the ballot. There is more time, should this millage fail, that we could certainly put it on a subsequent ballot. It doesn't expire till, I think it's 2025. We have time to get it right. And I don't think we did get it right. I explain to people often as I'm talking to them, they think it's a mental health millage, because very often in the literature that goes out on it, it appears to be funding mental health services in the community. I explain to people that it's actually divided 38, 38, 24. 38% goes to the sheriff, and 38% goes to community mental health. And then 24% goes to communities like ours that have our own police services. So you could refer to it as a rebate. That's how some people talk about it. And it was It was crafted in this way in order to bring all of the communities on board. I can see why we would be using the sheriff's funds to reduce the cost of policing in areas where they don't have their own public safety departments. I think some of the townships are struggling to provide public safety services and the cost, but I think it would be wise for the sheriff to look at why it costs so much for every deputy. So I would have a hard time saying that I support it. I will say that it's the only game in town right now. We worked very, very hard to get an ordinance in place that at least says that 50% of the funds out of the 38% that go to the sheriff must be used for a particular set of mental health and harm reduction services. But we never got our crisis center. My daughter is intellectually disabled and relies on community mental health. We do not get the funding that we need.
Thank you very much for that question. Okay, now it's time for the closing statements, and we will begin with Ms. Laronis. Your closing statement, 90 seconds.
Boy, I feel like I've said it all. You know, it's a wonderful community. It always has been. When I moved here in 1994, it was the country, and I loved it. And I wanted nothing more than to preserve Pittsfield Township and have it be the beautiful place that it is, and allow others to move there as well in a way that's sustainable and keeps the township healthy. I loved nothing more than my time in office. And we went to every meeting before I was in office. I went with friends, and we wrote newsletters, and we engaged the public. We opened up the master plan as soon as we were elected and put agriculture back into the master plan. We were able to save hundreds and hundreds of acres of land permanently. And I'm extremely proud of all that we accomplished. We started the very first pathway in Pittsfield Township, the larger pathways that are now throughout the township. I would probably change the township motto back to a diverse and welcoming community. It's been changed to the gold standard, which is not my style, but I would say a diverse and welcoming community describes Pittsfield Township. I think it can continue to be that for all of the people that live there. I love the new people. I love the existing residents. And I most of all love the environment there.
Thank you. Ms. Riley?
First of all, thank you again for doing this. This is a very important League of Women Voters. And anyone who's watching this, everyone looks at the federal and the state races. What's
Yes.
going to affect your every single day-to-day is races like this. We are going to be here for you. So please, this is a job interview. We're interviewing with you. Check our references, go to our websites, talk to the residents who've worked with us before, talk to the township staff, talk to local officials that you work with. And if you don't know your local official, go to washington.org/elections and find my local official. Ask what's going on. Because this is something that is very important, and make sure you look at the team that we're running with. Make sure you look at what we've done. I do want to tout something real quick, and Christina, you'll be excited about this, I hope too. We were talking about we've been Christina comes to the park commission meetings, and we've been working on the Waters Oak Valley Road Park, which is a park that is very high density area. It's a small park, but we've done public engagement on it. We've gotten partners to look at it, including the Disability Network and the Huron River Watershed Council. We were having a hard time getting funding, and I got a text from Felicia Brayback last night. We went to her to look for funding for the park because we were having a hard time getting grants, and we got $1 million coming to that park. That's what it's all, seeing the residents, asking what they want, doing due diligence, and finding the funding and making it happen. So thank you very much again for everyone's time, and thank you, Christina, for showing up, and vote.
Okay, thank you both very, very much. Really quite informative. And that's it.
All right, well, thank you. Have a good rest of your evening, everyone.
The League thanks the candidates and volunteers who participated in today's forum and the community members who submitted questions. Please urge others to view our forums. Most importantly, please vote in the August 6th primary election, whether by absentee ballot or in person.